In this video, we are going to discuss how to beat the Grunfeld defense or how to crush the Grunfeld defense. It is the opening that has been played from the white side. It is a sideline and it is a very interesting and not many players are aware of it, even the players who play the Grunfeld defense. So if you are looking for a weapon against the Grunfeld defense, this is the perfect video for you. I'm going to break down everything. So I don't want to waste any single time, so let's quickly jump into the video. So we are playing with the white pieces. And we start the game with 1d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight to c3 and d5. From here the Grunfeld defense begins. This particular structure is known as the Grunfeld defense. After d5, we play the move knight to f3. The main move is to capture the pawn. Knight takes e4, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop to g7, and the game goes on. But at the place of capturing the pawn, which is the main line, we play the move knight to f3. Simply developing the piece, bishop to g7, queen to b3. A very interesting move. This particular move or variation is also known as the Russian system. So after queen b3, the idea is pretty clear. White want to capture the pawn on d5. So what black does here is, black happily captures the pawn on c4 because after queen into c4, you can already sense the queen is in the center, which already in the opening, which is already not a good idea in the fundamentals of chess. But yeah, it's extremely fine according to engines. Yeah, that's no problem. So after queen into c4, black castle, and we play the move e4. This is a good advantage because we have already gained a good control over the center. So after e4, black, I think, is having like options in this particular position. If black continues with a6, trying to play the move b5, already bishop e2, b5, simply coming back with the queen, bishop b7, we can play the move e5, knight to d5, we can simply short castle, knight c3, queen into c3, and the good thing is, we are putting the pressure on the c7 pawn. And after knight d7, we can play the move a4 even, basically putting more pressure over here, undermining the queen side, c5, rook d1. Now what's the idea of rook d1? Basically after pawn take, we take with the rook. And now you can no longer capture the pawn because the knight is simply pinned. So after rook into d4, rook c8, we can play the move queen d3 already, threatening double attack on the knight on d7. So after rook c7, we can simply capture on b5, pawn takes, and after bishop to f4, simply developing the piece. Practically speaking, it's already good position for white. The reason is quite simple. You protect the pawn, you are already preparing to capture the b5 pawn, you are having much more space in the center because of the e5 pawn. And yeah, it's good position for white. So that's how you can play this particular position. If black plays a6, coming to the main variation, black plays the move b6. After b6, we play the move e5. And after e5, you can already sense if black tries to move the knight somewhere, like knight to e8, it's not a good sign because after queen d5, I'm already forcing a queen trade. You're forced to trade out the queen, and after knight takes, I'm already double attacking. Basically, I'm attacking the pawn on e7, and you are not having a good way to defend it. If you push the pawn, I can simply play knight e7 check and capture the bishop. It's winning for white. So that's how if knight e8. So the main move for black is to play the move bishop e6, which looks very sensible. You are simply attacking the queen. And black is thinking that we will move the queen, then black can put the knight to d5, and black is pretty happy. But for surprise, after bishop e6, we're already going to capture the knight on f6. We are a piece up. Black is not having any option but to capture the queen. We capture the bishop. And here we are already preparing to capture the rook. So king must capture the pawn. But now comes bishop into c4. And from here, the real game begins. After bishop into c4, let's try to evaluate the position. Let's try to count the material. White is having 6 pawn. Black is having 7 pawn, a pawn up. We have two rooks versus 2 rooks. A piece versus piece. And we are having 3 minor pieces against queen. So yeah, basically material wise, black is a pawn up. But positional wise, it's already winning for white. How? Even the engine says it's equalish, white is having slight advantage, but practically human wise it's lost because after bishop in c4, black plays, like what can black play? In the game, black played c6. If black plays something like c5, we can already play bishop d5, simply attacking the rook, and we win the game. Like if pawn takes, simply capture with the knight, and we can simply capture the rook, and you can just count the material. It's we are having 2 minor pieces and a rook for a queen, which is more than enough to win the game. So if c6, trying to cover the d5 square, which is very logical, simply short castle, knight to d7, bishop to f4. What White is doing? White is doing nothing special, but just simply developing the piece, focusing on castle, developing the pieces, playing a normal middle game. After bishop f4, black plays knight f6, rook g1, getting the rook into d1, rook to e1. Black plays queen c8. If black plays knight d5, trying to trade off the material as much as possible, knight g5, e d5, simply bishop a6, covering every square. And if, for example, if queen d7, rook c1, now take control of the c file, that's how you must play. Queen a4, attacking the bishop and the pawn, bishop b7, hitting the rook. The rook move, you play a3, queen b3, rook e1, attacking this pawn. If you try to capture this pawn, now you can simply capture the e7 pawn, and jumping in with the material, it's already lost for black. So a good idea would be to keeping the maximum pieces e6, rook e2 now, and if rook e7, bishop here, getting in with the bishops, check, and bishop f6, and you can already sense the bishop is at the optimum square. The bishop is we are having the bishop pair, which is extremely strong, and you are having the full control of the c file. Practically speaking, it's already quite better. So knight d5 is not a good move. It is definitely an idea though. Queen c8, rook e1, putting pressure on the e7 pawn. If you try to play e6, now already it's lost after bishop e5. My idea is to play knight e4 and win the piece, and you can't stop it. So black plays queen b7, protecting the pawn, but now e5. d5, simply opening up the position. What white did? White simply developed the pieces, castle as soon as possible, put the rook to d1, e1, and now finally opening up the position. If c5, not opening up the position, we can already play bishop b5, bishop c6 is coming up, and the game is over. So black captures, knight takes, rook to g8, bishop to e5, using this pin. Rook to d7, bishop come back to c3. Now what's the idea? White is preparing to sacrifice on e7. You can see rook g8, rook into e7, sacrificing the rook. Rook takes, and now comes bishop into f6 check. King move. And now how should white continue? So it looks like, can white capture the rook? It's not a good idea, as after queen takes, you can't really capture the queen because it leads to this. Then after this, the position is equalish. Not a good idea. So white plays the move knight to g5. Brilliancy. Now what's the idea of knight g5? Like basically putting one more piece into the battle. And now white is preparing to capture the rook. Like for example, if black plays rook d6, which exactly happened in the game, simply knight into pawn, king move, and now simply h4. Now what's happening here is, after h4, white's idea is to already expand on the king side. Just push the pawns and make a queen. That's it. And if you try to capture the rook, it's not a good idea again, because after queen takes, knight takes, rook takes, it's still the same, and the position is equalish. So basically what white is doing is, white is putting the maximum pressure. After h4, can black move his rook? No, he can't, because if he tries to move the rook, for example, to anywhere, let's take the square like this. It's not working. Bishop b5 check. And you will see, the king is kind of trapped in the center of the board. If rook d7, now comes bishop g5. Knight f6 is coming up. Basically, it's completely lost. That's my idea. After h4, the game went b5, and now finally white captured the rook. Takes, because here comes bishop into b5 check. The king move, knight g5, bishop c4, and eventually it's already good because you now can just simply calculate the material. White's having 3 minor pieces, 2 pawns for a queen. It's more than enough to win. Game went on, but eventually, after a couple of moves, black decided to resign this game after 43 moves after rook e6. A brilliant game played by both grandmasters. Both grandmasters were having nearly, one grandmaster was having 2736 rating and another grandmaster was having 2687. So you can already sense how powerful this particular opening is to crush the Grunfeld defense. There is no way for black to have any escape. Just play simple moves like developing the pieces, castle as soon as possible, opening up the position, using the power of the bishop pair, and that's how you win the game. Just use some calculation and that's it to win the game. That's how you can simply crush the Grunfeld defense, and I hope you must have learned something new. If you did, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel. I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this, so till then stay tuned and keep watching Oneshot Chess.